Hey, welcome back to Springboard at Home. This is a place where you will undoubtedly hear some personal stories by Brad Fishman, maybe some jokes, some jokes by the always entertaining Lane Fisher, some okay hosting by me. But luckily for everybody here, we have some phenomenal franchise leaders on every single week. We're thankful for their time, and kudos to everybody for investing your time to learn from the great folks that we're bringing. So the topic for today is back to business, kind of along the same vein that we have obviously been hitting on throughout all of this stuff. Today we have multiple industries represented, from quick serve food to med spa to entertainment, with our two guests. The goal is for you to be able to take nuggets, apply them to your business, and really learn from what these folks are doing. So one could say we also have Dallas in the house in a big way, because myself, I reside in Dallas, as well as the two other guests are right here in the DFW Metroplex. So before we bring them in, like always, let's do a temperature check, pun intended. We'll do a temperature check over in Philly and over in Chicago. Looks like, Brad, you're now in the office. I see you beaming from ear to ear. You look excited.
Because I said literally I took a temperature check this morning. And when you start taking your temperature, because I joked around with my team before I'd come back, as I said, because I had a call this morning early, I said, I'm going to take my temperature at home first. And you're actually, when you take your temperature at home, I haven't hit 98 yet. And so that's true. My wife goes to me, well, most people are in the 97s. I'm like, okay, great. I guess I feel fine. But yes, we are back.
I can assure you that Sherry and Zach's temperature is probably a little higher dealing with you at home. But.
Yeah, I would brag. Does it hurt to sit down?
But being truthful, it's great to be that both of our guests are back, back in the office, and it feels good to be back in my office, at least for 2 days a week for the next 3 weeks. And I hate to say it, I really do miss it. So welcome everybody, and that's why it's so appropriate. Now it's called back to the office now too. And even Michael, I can see people walking behind you, so which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm
excited to be back.
I'm not at the office. I don't know if you could tell that. We are still in a dark yellow stage in Philadelphia, and hoping for things to come back to normal. And part of what keeps me going every day is talking to folks like these folks that are rapidly becoming engaged elsewhere. And so we are grateful once again to have our folks on sharing the experience that they have. But we find it uplifting to talk to folks that are making more progress than we are here. Just an update, our Switchboard campaign is going hot and heavy. Hopefully you see that in your social media feeds. If you know folks who don't know where they're headed back to work or want to see what else is out there, have them please check our Switchboard thing at no charge. And new jobs are getting posted there daily. I think as more cities and places come online, people are coming back, and the needs to fill are arising. So I already know of 1 or 2 people that obtained new employment. We all know one, and it happened. It functioned exactly as it was supposed to. So I encourage you folks to use it, no charge, and we all hope that people land in a safe place. So with that, I will turn it back to Dallas.
So one quick note on that, guys, if you're not following Franchisors.com, the Franchise Springboard page on Instagram and on Facebook, be sure that you're doing that. There's also a group over on Facebook for Switchboard. So go right now on your phones, go follow those, because you get a lot of updates and all the rest. So by way of introduction for today's guest, we have the CEO and the founder and CEO of Urban Air Adventure Parks, Michael Browning. Michael was actually the very first person on the summer tour when we kicked it off here in Dallas. So it was good to go spend some time in the office when we did that little bus tour across the country. And then we also have Eric Werner. He's a multi-unit operator of multiple different brands that you guys will hear about here today. So the franchise family welcomes you to Springboard at Home, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So Michael, let's start with you. Share a little about your story, your career journey, and that led you up to where you're at thus far, and a little bit about Urban Air.
Yeah, sure. So I started a customer data marketing analytics company out of my dorm room in college, and sold it to a private equity family office out of Santa Barbara, California. We did a bunch of, made a bunch of investments, did a lot of different things, and it was all centered around understanding the customer. This was far before Buxton ever existed, and so it was super early. And so throughout my travels, I saw a trampoline park, thought it was cool. It was really, it was the only one, and said, hey, when I ran it through my analytics platform, it looked like something that the consumers would really gravitate toward, and something that I thought we needed in Dallas. So I opened one in Dallas. Then I opened 3 more. Then in 2016, we pivoted from a trampoline park to really being a full service family entertainment center with a fast casual restaurant and a ton of different attractions. And that's really where we widened the moat around our castle, and we had more competitive advantage. So right now we have 150 locations in our portfolio. Around 40 of them are open. We're opening another 43 units this weekend. System-wide revenue, it was projected pre-COVID to be about $400 million. We service about 30 million guests on an annual basis. So it's been a great ride, and love hanging out with you guys.
Michael, one thing I'll note, when you came and spoke at Young Conference, plugged the Young Conference there, it was really compelling because of your background coming from technology. And I think we'll get into some of those things today in terms of how you've approached different angles of navigating this. You guys were absolutely, like everybody on the call probably, were absolutely rocked by this. So I think that gives great perspective from the technology side. And Eric has a little bit of a different story, being in different industries, being able to be open for the most part throughout all of this. So Eric, what about your story? How did you originally get into Subway, and what brands are you operating today?
Okay, so originally I got into franchising in 1987 with Precision Tune, which is the automotive tune-ups. And within 6 months, we became the #2 Precision Tune in the nation in sales.
Hey, could you lean in or speak up a little bit? I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, is that better?
Yeah, better.
Okay. So originally I started with Precision Tune 1987, which was an automotive franchise. And we ended up expanding from there into Meineke Mufflers. I found out about Subway through a independent business I created that was couponing at colleges called Money Savers. And one of the clients that I solicited for Money Savers was a Subway franchisee in Lubbock. And I was fascinated because it looked simple and it was a restaurant business. And so I got in Subway in 1990. At one point I had 70 Subway stores, and I was the highest average unit volume Subway operator in the system. And I won franchisee of the year like 6-7 times in Subway, and also franchisee of the year in Precision Tune. I dabbled in a lot of concepts, from Wingstop to Muya Burgers to TCBY Yogurt to Brittany's Hair Salon, Veterans View newspaper, even the Catch Seafood. That's what I'm in today. I've got 40 Subway restaurants, and then I've got 8 Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Center med spas, and 3 the Catch restaurants, and also Rhino Removal, which is a waste. We take the trash out for residents, and it's independent that we created, waste removal service. So we have about 12,000 homes, and that's where I stand today.
Excellent. Well, kudos. The top franchisee Subway in the system, franchisee of the year for multiple times. So clearly you know a thing or two about operating.
Eric, why aren't you in our system?
Well, I looked at your competitor.
Eric, we told him when we were speaking that he's going to have a lot of people in the audience. Hey, let's talk. That's funny. Michael, you mentioned you have 40 open, 43 more coming online this weekend. I know that it's kind of like a praise moment for you guys to be able to get to that point. What are you seeing data-wise as you're reopening?
Yeah, sure. So to provide maybe like a baseline, our average unit volumes on our small locations are 2.5 million AUVs. On our larger ones, it's about 3.7 million. So the smaller units, which is the majority of what opened over the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 waves of openings to get up to 40 as we sit today. And then this weekend, we're doing a big batch of 43 units. So they started out about 22% of prior year. They've ramped up to 55% of prior year. And they're getting up to about 55% of prior year sales in the first week is what we're seeing. And that's non-membership revenue. So that's walk-in, food and beverage, all of your ancillaries. Then you lay over the recurring membership revenue that triggered when the park opened back up. And that has gotten some parks up to 72% of prior year. So we're not back, right, like where we were last year, but we're very pleased with the results. And we've spent very little marketing dollars, just a little bit on paid social and paid search. We're about to go really big on the marketing next week. Got it.
And talk about some of the things, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit later, but talk about some of the things that you did preemptively, because this is in your world, it was kind of at the beginning of all this, and now you're having some data come in. It's largely unseen. Are people going to feel safe to bring their kids to go to your awesome venues? So talk about what you did kind of in terms of mining feedback from your folks, listening to them, and all the rest.
Sure. So obviously we're following all of the state and local guidelines. But on top of that, we wanted to know what would it really take to get mom back in the park with her kids? Because by and large, mom is our customer and kid is our user. So we went out to over 3 million families and asked them, like, what would it take to get you back? And how quickly would you come back? And what would need to put into place? And so overwhelmingly, I was showing you some of the survey data a while back, and they wanted our staff to wear masks. They wanted us to take the temperatures of our staff and the guests when they walked in. They wanted increased sanitation on an hourly basis. On attractions where it's high touch, like go-karts and our coasters and things like that, they wanted it wiped down after every use. They wanted touchless interactions, so they didn't want to use cash. And they wanted us to limit the capacity in our parks. So we were able to check all those boxes and deliver that experience to the guest. So what's crazy is pre-COVID, we were running around a 55 net promoter score on average across all various categories. Now, when post-COVID, we're asking all the guests that came in, we've increased our NPS by 42 points. So it's nuts where we're sitting on, and it is a statistically significant sample size. It's not like we got 10 guests that gave us a super high NPS. It's good data. So we're pleased with where we are. Guests are noticing. So what I would tell people listening is guests are noticing more than ever when you do a good job, and they're posting on social media and they're letting you know. And they are also noticing when you do a bad job, and they're holding you accountable. We had one location in Florida not taking the temperatures of guests like we promised in email, we promised on our website, right? And within the first hour of that park reopening, they were on the phone with my customer service team, really upset that we weren't delivering on our promises. So guests are watching more than ever, and you really need to treat these early adopters, right? The people who are coming out of their homes early, very special, and do what you say you're going to do, because they're going to tell all their friends who are waiting and seeing how it works for them.
How are you, just to close the loop, because this is super valuable for people listening. You did an initial survey, and you're going back and you're closing that loop and you're listening. So what did you use to go do that?
For the email system, to be honest with you, we use Salesforce.com, which for our email blast, right? So Marketing Cloud. And then we actually used a Google form instead of SurveyMonkey. And then we tied that Google form into a dashboarding solution like Tableau or Grow. We use a bunch of different stuff. So, I mean, I talk about like scrappy. I mean, it was so scrappy and we deployed it quickly. So we didn't have to spend a ton of money but there's great platforms. SurveyMonkey, Constant Contact, I think has a great built-in survey platform, but we kept it simple.
Excellent. Eric, how about for you? What obviously you have the 3 different businesses, so maybe you can just give context for each. But I think you were closed down for the most part for around 8 weeks, at least in the North Texas and the Texas area. But what did you see? What have you seen as far as data? Was there an initial spike, or was it ramped? And what did it look like for you? And also, what is the open footprint today?
Yeah, each business was different. When they first did lockdown, I of course freaked out like everybody else because we didn't know what that looked like. And I can go into that in detail if you want to know more. But fortunately, the restaurant business was considered essential, so Subways were still open. The first couple of weeks we were open, we were down 70% versus last year in sales. I think a lot of that had to do with, everyone taking it seriously. We really don't know how bad this is going to be, as far as the coronavirus and its effects, and also the inundated with the media. Then after that, it seemed like every couple weeks we would be from 70% down to 50% down to 30% down to 10. And when they reopened up, it gave us another kick. As far as when I say reopen up, they just, okay, now you can go inside the restaurant. You just 25% people can come in, and and then it was 50%. Now it's 75%. So as it stands today, we're actually up in sales over last year, and that's kind of crazy because Subway's not a drive-through, and we're 5% up the last 2 weeks over last year in sales, same store sales. So there's probably reasons for that because some competitors are not there anymore, or people have a lot of money, et cetera. But it's good to see that there is a high percentage of people out there that still want to be normal, that still want to live their lives, that they're going to be cautious, they're going to wear the mask, or they're going to wipe down the handle with sanitizing wipe or whatever, but there is hope. And so I was really surprised. I mean, because back when we applied for PPP, we were down 50-60%. And I thought that's how it was going to be. I really did. And then it just was weird to see every week, the momentum in the right direction. And that was Subway. With Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Centers, we were locked down for 5 or 6 of those 8 weeks, as far as we could not open. Even though a customer could come in, we could call them, even though we could probably call them in from the parking lot, they can come in, go directly to a room, and we could do a one-on-one with them, which is probably a lot safer than everybody going rogue in Walmart, where there's 200, 900 employees. I think that part of the reason why we were closed in elective surgeries and all that, and dentists and ophthalmologists and all that, is that they were trying to save the mask and other supplies for the medical. So that was understandable. While we were closed, though, we were still able to stay afloat by calling on customers and doing pre-sales for when we would open. So the strategy we used on that was, hey, we don't think the lockdown will last forever, and we would like to schedule you in later on in June or beginning of July. And right now, if you do make like an appointment, we give you a discount.
Yep.
To entice the customer and make a commitment. And of course, it would be, a deposit, non-refundable, et cetera. At the same time, we also did hormones. We still had a lot of hormone clients that we could fill their orders for thyroid, testosterone, et cetera. So we ended up, even though we were locked the doors to the public, the med spas were still probably 20 to 30% of last year in sales, or down 60, 70%. Once we opened, though, I got a real surprise because I didn't know what would happen. And pleasantly, when we opened up, it was like normal, with the med spas. There's, I guess, maybe our clientele, there's a certain percentage of clientele that in our clientele that have high income and disposable income that, they just probably couldn't wait to get in and stuff. So we've been open like 3 weeks now, and sales have just been, maybe 4 weeks now. So sales have been normal there. And also in the Catch Seafood restaurant, which was followed the similar trend like Subway, only the Catch is up like 40% over last year in the 3 restaurants that we have, which is more like, the Catch is like a Wingstop, but it's seafood.
Got it.
So then in rhino removal, which was, waste removal for residentials, obviously that was kind of resistant. What we did see, though, was a lot more trash. People cleaning out garages and
Brad Fishman's wine bottles.
Yeah, it was. So it was, I mean, it's still cut into your bottom line a little bit because you have these agreements with municipalities and cities, and so we can't increase our income necessarily, but our costs went up a little bit because of the trips to landfills and stuff like that.
Eric, being the franchisee of the year for two different systems, you're obviously not your average franchisee. And so you had to really, I assume that you had to really go out and by looking at your numbers, and some franchisors will give you some ideas, but some way to get up there, you had to improvise because most people thought about, okay, great. What kind of type of little tricks did you do to really help build your system, the growth?
You mean during this crisis or before?
Yeah, during the COVID thing, because to get numbers up, obviously when you don't have delivery, and many of your competitors were already delivering, the Jimmy Johns of the world were already delivering.
Right. Okay, so when this first happened, I thought I was all by myself, but as we realized that there's a lot of support out there from whether it's the franchisor not charging royalties or waiving royalties for a certain amount of time or advertising, versus negotiating with your landlord's rents and maybe even renegotiating some leases at that time, because the landlord knows that if you ever left that center, it's harder to fill that up. And so at the store level, what we did have delivery. There's delivery services. There's Grubhub, and there's whatever they are. Subway negotiated a fixed price with them, and I think that we just made sure that I don't think we did anything too spectacular, probably just operationally, to be honest with you, and the use of delivery services. I think that we would do a direct mailer maybe a little bit, but it was just more to let people know we're open. That was the biggest thing. We had POP outside, maybe banners or flags. But for the most part, I think that, we wanted to make sure that customers knew that when they came in the restaurant, because you could still come into the restaurant even in a lockdown. You can come in and order your food and leave. And a lot of people don't know that. Yeah. Educating that they could do that. When they did come in there, that it felt clean, and so sanitizing stands, everyone's wearing masks, serving the customer, and because people want to feel safe. That's the biggest thing. So we've been pretty happy with that. I think that's nothing totally significant, in my opinion, other than educating the customer and making sure that they feel safe and it's clean in there. So
I love how you make it sound so easy with your accolades. Hey, Eric, one other thing that I wanted to make sure that we get in that you I know had mentioned, cities and counties. I was not aware that I think you went out and you got a little bit of abatement or something with cities and counties. So could you really quickly speak to that? Because there might be some opportunities for folks in the audience.
Yeah, I'll try to make it quick. So when the lockdown first happened, the first thing that went through my mind was panic and depression. And so for like 2 weeks, I was like a zombie. I was like, dang, and I was just like everybody else, just staying at home. And just really felt I was all by myself and tried to figure out what my burn rate was, which is whatever my liquidity was and how long I could last. I thought all the businesses had to be doors shut, locked, and you're going to pay rent and no payments for, until we reopen. And then I had a bank, one of my banks called me up and asked me like 2 or 3 days later, hey, do you need some help with deferring payments or interest only for 90 days and stuff like that. And then the franchisor was waiving royalties, and then the supplier was going to give us our rebates back sooner than normally. We get our rebates in December. They gave a half year's up front. Long story short, everybody was helping out. So the mentality is that you're not in it alone. And then the second thing is okay, so we don't really, it's so unknown. We don't even know if we'll have a second wave. I doubt it, but we don't know. So the mentality was to build a war chest, to try to accumulate as much as you can in liquidity to make sure that, to protect the businesses and they survive. And so I started looking at other avenues of what's out there. And there's counties and cities that want to help their local businesses. And like in Denton County, they offered, it's kind of like it's a grant basically. So they offer a grant and you still have to report his income and stuff, but it doesn't have to be paid back. And it's like in Denton, it was $7,500. And then the city of McKinney offered $2,500, and then the government came out with PPP, but before they did, we went out and reached out to the IDL because we wanted to react quickly, because even on PPP, as you know, they ran out. So that we just looked at every avenue that was out there that was available for us to help us. And so it was nice to have that support versus being all by yourself.
Yeah. One topic I want to switch to, Michael, how did the intake, as you're now reopening, how did the intake change? And did you have to spin up new technologies? And what does that look like on the intake side?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest survey responses was that guests wanted us to limit capacity, and then guests wanted more touchless interactions in the form of the way they buy tickets, food and beverage and merchandise. So the only way to limit capacity would really be know who the heck's going to show up, right? And to be able to limit it. So we quickly created a capacity management ticketing solution that really doesn't exist out there in our space, that allows our guests to buy a ticket, which that seems simple, right? Buying a ticket and assigning it to a slot, that's great. But what we had to do was build a solution where our franchisees could enter in their building capacity listed on their certificate of occupancy. And then they could enter in what the regulation was. So if they were 1,000 and the city saying you can only have 25% capacity, then they can only have 250 people in there. So the system had to know that. So then it had to allocate all the tickets out across the day and ensure that the franchisee never exceeded 250 people in the park at any given time. So we built this entire technology to do that. And then we built this technology where they're in the park, they can they can buy food and beverage from their phone. They're just showing the staff their phone, and then they hit a shred button. So like, hey, I've got a pizza. Okay, great. Hit the shred button. I'll give you a slice of pizza. So we turned every one of our guests' phones into a register that we never have to touch. We just watch them do it on their phone. So it was huge. And I think that's going to be a silver lining for us coming out of COVID that is here to stay. I mean, Disney was already doing it. You can order food when you're in the queue line of a ride. When you get off that ride, you can go to, down to wherever and grab it. From a quick service perspective. So that's been huge for us. And as we've launched, 58% of all transactions are occurring through our e-com platform starting day one.
That's impressive. It would take normal people a year to go build that. We've been talking about that every single week. Michael, one of the things Eric mentioned is some of the obvious things that his franchisors did for him to help out. What have you done for your franchisees? What do you continue to do to help them through this tough time?
Yeah, I mean, many of the things that Eric said that he did, and so we deferred royalties through June. So, for example, we're just now issuing royalty statements, right? So, so we deferred royalties, pass-through expenses. We actually gave franchisees money for the first 60 days of marketing. So it's one thing to defer or not pool for the National Marketing Fund. Because I was going, well, how are we going to pool, 4% of zero is zero, right? So we actually used our liquidity and gave it to the franchisees so that they can market for the first 60 days coming out of COVID. Because I'm a big believer that in turmoil lies opportunity. And so when a lot of brands aren't going to have the money to marketing, cost per clicks are lower, cost per 1,000 impressions are lower, TV's lower, radio's lower, we wanted to have a war chest to go to market and start marketing. So we loaned franchisees millions of dollars to start marketing when they opened. We
just got frozen.
Yeah, so it looks like we lost Michael. Michael, you back?
Yeah, did I lose you?
Yeah. We lost you right
man.
It was great. We lost you about 15 seconds ago you were saying that you loan money to franchisees or gave money to franchisees.
Yeah. So we would normally in a normal environment, we would pull 4% of gross revenue, and that would go into the DMA level marketing plans. But I went to the team and said, well, 4% of zero is zero. They don't have any money to market, right? They haven't been open. So what we did is said, okay, in a normal environment, what would they need to spend, right? What would the 4% be that we would pull and then deploy? And we literally came out of our liquidity, gave it to franchisees so that when they open, they'll have 60 days of marketing runway on us. It's a loan, but it's an interest-free loan. It's free money that they're going to pay back over 9 equal installments. So we did that. We got 98% of our franchisees loans. Many of them got EIDL. We helped a lot of them look into the tax credits. We negotiated deferments on rent, and just tried to let them know that we were there for them. I was having system-wide calls. Obviously, we're not Subway, so I'm able to do something like that on a weekly basis, right? So we were having system-wide calls on a weekly basis, and just being there for them was really important because we, I would tell them, like, I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is that we're going to get through this, and we're scrappy enough to figure out how. And so we just stayed with them, and, and we're still fighting the fight. We're not there yet, but it's getting better every day.
We're hearing a common theme, which is talking about, Eric mentioned it, Michael talked about, you as you said, as you told us yesterday, you put together a playbook. Eric, you made a comment about different towns and communities are giving you different monies. It's very difficult, as you're hearing from franchisors, because there is no, Philadelphia might be different in the suburbs. Chicago is going to open later than the suburbs around Chicago. It's kind of hard dealing with all the regulations. 50 people might be one place. It might be, half capacity in another place. And it's, it's hard for a lot of franchise systems to navigate going through this. And that's, Michael, you kind of talked about your playbook. Eric, you probably, Subway can't go to every community. You had the ability to know which communities to go and what to ask for, or at least research it to find out. How did you decide, Eric? I'll start with Eric. How did you decide how to go where and who to go to who?
Well, a lot of times things were thrown to me on email. Actually, it was real interesting that this county was offering this, and actually taking the time to apply. As far as what was out there, I did do Google, and found a lot of other things out there. That's how I found out about McKinney and stuff. And really, it's just it was just nice to know to get that support that you got it from everybody, from the franchisor, from the bank, you got it from the landlords, and you got from your own communities, as far as your cities and stuff that really value you. It was really good.
So can you hear me? Eric, so we talked a little yesterday, but I would like to just re-explore with you how you went about reestablishing the relationship with your employees or operators or whatever, technicians, whatever you call them in your other businesses, and how you reestablish with the customer, and ask you to touch on the promos and the other things that are sort of in the news now.
Okay, so the way I operate on a system is different than I did 10 years ago. When I own like 6 Beverly Hills rejuvenation centers up here in Dallas, I'm 80% owner. I have a 20% managing partner. There's somebody that always wanted to be an owner, that had high expertise in the field. The reason why I'm saying that's really important to me is because when the lockdown came down, instead of all the weight falling on my shoulders, I had other people I could depend on that actually had more at stake than I did, because they had just that one segment of business where I was branched out. So, when the coronavirus came, let me see. So, Lane, tell me again exactly what you wanted.
Oh, no. I asked you just how you went about getting customers and employees back.
Okay.
And
all right. So when our Beverly Hills rejuvenation centers up here in Dallas were in lockdown, my managing partner wanted to keep or retain on our payroll key employees, our nurse practitioners and our med spa managers that were very, very skilled. And so we sat down to figure out, what that would cost a week. And we basically kept them until we got PPP, which PPP helped after that. But at that point, it's like reinvesting in your company. And so when we reopened back up here in Dallas, everybody came back but one person, because obviously the $600 unemployment is quite an incentive for people to stay home. And then in Subway, we were open the whole time. So that was a little bit different. We did lose 50% of our employees though. So if I had 500 employees, I was down to 250 or 300 probably. So around there, all came back though, especially when PPP came. You know, you're kind of, at that time we were one of the first on PPP, and we had 8 weeks to make 75% payroll. And so that means hiring more people than you need, but it actually helped because we had more people cleaning. You know what I'm saying? It just, there was more people available to the customers as they were coming into our restaurants, which if you ran it normally, yes, there would be cleaning, but now we've got people that we made sure, or they went out to take an order. Like I did have 1 or 2 Subways that had a pickup window, so they go out and take an order, you know. So the customer service, the cleanliness also picked up with the PPP. That helped us out on that. And then as far as, did you say the advertising lane? Oh, you're muted.
I think he was referencing the promotion and the news. There's some stuff in the news about maybe.
Oh, just how you brought him back, Eric, and what role the promotions, if any, played. Because you talked about customer impressions, and you thought, I don't know, I thought you said some interesting things yesterday.
Yeah, well, yeah, okay. Well, we did do the pre-sales with the med spas. That helped a lot. That was a good thought, you know. And when you have a managing partner and they don't have the liquidity you have, you know, they're going to really go for that customer in those sales. And so it really paid off quite a bit. So,
Michael, as it relates to getting people back into the office, and I think you've now set up a schedule there at the HQ. What type of program do you have in place? I think you're doing some alternating shifts and such, but what does that look like to help people feel safe and to kind of mitigate the risk there?
Yeah, so all of our staff has to take temperatures when they come in every day. We are running A/B shifts, so we have, and I wish I would have called it something differently, but we have an A team and a B team. People get offended by that, by the way, so go with colors. Learn from me. But
Lane's on
we
the
have
B team.
yeah, you know, my bad. So we have an A team and a B team. So the A team works Mondays and Thursdays in the office, and the B team works Tuesdays and Fridays. We have the entire staff work from home on Wednesdays because we instituted a 15% pay cut here at the home office. And so Wednesdays is work from home Wednesdays to save gas, tolls, babysitters, wear and tear in your car, your tires, just trying to give them, time in the car. And they've really liked that. And so splitting the staff into 2 groups has isolated if one group gets sick, we can tell them to continue to stay home. And it's great from a confidence boost. Everyone's taking their temperatures, but I've got this crazy technology out in the lobby that I could walk out and show you, and it reads your.
Of course you do.
get off the elevator, but like if you bring in a hot Starbucks, it sets the alarm off. Or if somebody was smoking a cigarette outside and sets the alarm off. So like my HR department's like running out there seeing why the alarm's going off all the time. But hey, it gives people confidence. We're trying to protect our employees, and people are really embracing it. We've got social distancing in our cafe, stickers on the floor. We're wearing masks. We're doing everything we can do. It's good. So far, so good.
Yeah. Eric, what about you?
as far as?
Do you have well, first I should ask, because your operations are all across the place. Do you have a home office and an HQ, or is everything spread out kind of in the different markets?
Well, I have both. My home office is at the Texas Motor Speedway. And so when the coronavirus hit, most of that office staff went remote for a while, and they just started coming back full time up there. And yes, we do temperature checks, masks, and everything of the such. But like, for example, I've got 15 or 16 Subways down in Clean. They have their own office. So it's kind of like a regional office.
Yep.
And then even in Waco and then in McKinney, they all have their own regional offices and stuff. So
Yep.
I think that when it first hit, the restaurant business really, they couldn't do anything remote. They just basically run operations as normal. The med spas, what they did is the manager would come to the actual location and go inside, lock up, and do inventory or make calls to the customers. You know, we were still, we required a lot of them, where the nurse practitioners, they pretty much stayed home, you know, until they could come back to work and stuff. So, you know, again, it's like you said, it's the temperature checks, it's the masks, the social distancing, everything that we've been, that we've learned that might be or should be effective with the coronavirus and stuff. So.
Yep. Thank you. So one kind of general question, we've both spoke separately over the past weeks or so. What is your, Michael, what is your kind of long-term outlook? You know, obviously dealing with COVID now and all the rest, but as you look towards the future, you mentioned that franchisees kind of turn to you and expect you to have this crystal ball, and you're like, look, I don't have one, but we're going to get through this. But what's your long-term outlook? What's your feeling? Because I know that you guys were, it's been very tough, but what do you think that looks like in the future? And then how do you think that, you've already alluded to it, some of the technologies and the rapid innovations, how do you think that kind of pressure will help you down the line?
I've got a really bullish look on the future for our business. You know, and I've been talking to a lot of different research companies about this, but you know, what COVID did is it made people realize that all the stuff they had been accumulating in their homes from Amazon and and being locked up in their home does not give them the true happiness that maybe they thought it would if they just accumulated more stuff. And so what I love about our business is you can't buy our experience on Amazon. And a lot of people, right? There's going to be early adopters, the herd, and the laggers. And the laggers are going to take a while to come out of their homes. But the early adopters and the herd are coming. And I'm really excited about that. And what we're finding is that people now more than ever, they want to go eat at Eric's places. They want to go to the med spa. They want to go to my place and experience joy and relationships and have fun with the people that they've missed for the last 12, 14 weeks. And so I'm really bullish on where our industry is going to go. I think we're going to bounce back and be better than we were before. And so, yeah, I do think the technology is here to stay. I think we've got to learn to service the guest in the way that still makes them confident. As the world reopens, COVID's not going to go hide under a rock, right? So I've been trying to set the expectation with my staff that you should expect spikes wherever you are, because people are coming out and there's no vaccine yet. And so it is what it is. By the end of 2020, I would bet every one of us on this call are going to know someone who had COVID, or we may have it ourselves. It's just a fact, but I'm really bullish on the space. I think that people are tired of cooking. That's why all of Eric's restaurants are up. People are tired of cooking. Like they're tired of shopping. They're tired of cooking. They're tired of watching Netflix, and they're going to get out. It's going to trickle through. And we've got to take the early adopters. We got to make them talk about their experience and how it was great and how they're safe and how they've been home for 4 days and they don't have COVID after getting out. And then everyone will breathe a sigh of relief and go, okay, well, Eric went out and he's fine, so I guess let's try it. I mean, we're seeing that in our own friend group. I was the first one to take my family to Gloria's Mexican Food in Colleyville.
Great place.
My wife and I told my friends about it, right? And now all of a sudden they had a girls' night last week. So it's just going to take some of that, and I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah, I think what you said about the early adopters and then the laggers, and then you have your people that are freaked out about everything, that's just, they're going to exist. But treating those initial people right and getting them to share their experience, that's critical. I think every brand on this call could do a better job at that. How are you guys asking for that? And is it just natural? People want to share their reviews and share on social, or do you have things built in that help facilitate that?
On my side, if you come to one of our facilities, we're geo-tracking you when you leave, and you'll get a survey. I think it's 3 or 4 hours after you leave our building. And so that's where we're getting our NPS data. That's where we're getting our customer satisfaction. We're doing, our agency is using social listening to see everything that's said online. And so the combination of social listening with true customer satisfaction surveys is how we're understanding if we're doing a good job.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to do a shameless self interest deal and say that we have at Rallyo, we have an employee advocacy program or a customer advocacy program that you guys should look at. But I think that's a big opportunity for brands to be able to have built in not just net promoters, but real promoters in your brand that want to share these experiences. And it's happening offline, like the example with your wife and them having a ladies' night, and you're probably like, honey, go. But but that's really good stuff. Eric, is there anything that you would add to that, to the last little bit there? And then also what I'd like you to do is just give your advice to, there's a lot of emerging brands that are on this call and that will listen subsequently on Franchisors.com. What advice do you have to emerging franchisors? I think your perspective as a very successful operator and franchisee, I think that'd be good for them to hear.
Okay, let me circle back to what the original question on the future and stuff. And I do want to say that, coronavirus is here today, but it's not going to be here forever, this type of coronavirus. As more information is coming out, we're finding more about what this virus is and the mortality rates and all that. And I think that people need reassurance. I do think this is a great time for opportunities. And when the first 2 or 3 weeks when we were locked down, I didn't look at it that way. And then I opened up my mind to what was out there. For example, I'll give you some examples. One is there's other franchisees that might be struggling and they want out. They're scared to death, and you can buy them for probably a pretty good price, or other businesses as well, other franchises even. And then another opportunity is with landlords. They're, like I mentioned earlier, landlords, you can probably negotiate the rent on about 15% of the current leases you have for now. Okay. And so I just think that to me, the future is going to be, to me right now, but it's unknown going forward, is that and I know that I'm probably an anomaly because we're in Texas and my businesses seem normal and all that. But I think that there's a lot of people that do want to get back to the norm, even if it's the new norm, but it's not a lockdown in our cave norm. And yes, there will be 10% of people that'll be scarred. And maybe it might take them 2 to 5 years to figure it out that it's safe to go out and eat in a restaurant. Okay. But one of the things that we're going to do with our subways, we're supposed to be remodeling our subways now. And so we're looking at how can we do a pickup window in some of them, or how can we take the ones that are pickup windows and because they're freestanding and make them a drive-through subway through this remodel process, just to make it easier on the customer. So there's a lot of if you look at it more as this is a time for opportunities, if you got in the stock market in mid-March, you probably made a killing because that's when it dove and some stocks went up like 150%. So there's a lot of opportunities, but going forward, to me, it looks very optimistic. I think that until the election happens, I'm not saying this is election ploy. I just feel like, we're going to be battling this. Is there a surge? Is there not a surge? I mean, California's locked down. They got a surge, but nobody says anything. Ohio's open. They don't have a surge, but nobody says anything. So you got to, it's a little bit media driven at this point, you know what I'm saying? I do, very, very optimistic about it, but I know people will be cautious going forward. And then
it's actually, Eric, when you talk about rebuilding restaurants, it's clear. It was a question I was thinking of all along is like, I mean, I guess the world thinks that the purchasing public, the people who go out to eat may be not irreversibly scarred from, but just have different purchasing patterns from being at home and cooking more at home and doing more at home. And I can see you're building restaurants to suit more at-home dining, and not the other. But do you have any, I know you can't see around corners, but what's your expectation about, whether things have changed?
Well, I mean, I'm seeing up in Flower Mound, people are like a certain Mexican restaurant, everybody's in there. They're eating like it's normal. I go to the gym and you wouldn't even think there was a coronavirus. And they just, it's there, but how severe it is another thing, I pretty much think that, if like the protesting, here's an example. What if we don't get a surge with all those protests? What does that tell you? That should tell you, well, we can go out mass crowd and we'll be okay. right? So it's just stuff to think about, and just be a little bit more open-minded on those things. And I think that a lot of people, at least in Texas, it just really feels there's a lot. And Ryan, you know, this is traffic and people are eating out. I ate at PF Chang's the other day, you know, and dine in and all that. And that restaurant in Colleyville, Michael, were you one of the first on the pictures?
Amen, brother. I
In
was
trouble,
in the
right?
news.
No, not really. But that's one of the things is, you know, it's just kind of, I don't think that we're like 70 or 80% scarred. We might be 10 or 15% of those people that are just really weirded out on this and insecure and just psychologically, you know, impaired from it, you know. But I don't think as a whole as society, and obviously the stock market doesn't think that at all because it's rocking and rolling. I just think it's, you know, a year from now we might look back and go, man, we really overreacted. We might say that, you know. So anyways, the future looks very optimistic, at least what we're seeing in Texas. I can't say for elsewhere. So
Hey, Lane, you know,
Go ahead, Michael.
one thing that we've done that's helped provide some diverse perspective that I failed to mention was that we created a mommy focus group. And so we've got, it's probably close to 30 moms that are geographically dispersed around the country, various ages, ethnicities, location. And we're having tough conversations with them about COVID, about Black Lives Matters. And we're asking like, hey, so like, what do you think? Right. And there's moms, you know, I mean, even in Texas, like one of our moms last night on our 6 p.m. session, who's down in Houston, had a lot different perspective than, you know, the mom that was in Dallas, and definitely the mom that was in Jersey. So really kind of getting, if you can start listening to your customers in real time and help and allow them to help you process through some of this stuff, it can help you make decisions about, you know, adding drive-through windows, or you probably saw the article about Starbucks closing down locations, right? And they're going to be changing. The third place may not be the third place anymore. It may be more metaphorical of a third place. So that was really interesting that Starbucks is going to make a shift like that. So I think Eric's onto something on, there is a part of what we just went through that could change how we operate in the future, but I don't think it doesn't change the fundamentals of the success he's having in restaurants or that we're having in location-based entertainment. Just might have to tweak it a little bit.
Well, they're talking about the surge, and like kind of this goes back to what Eric was saying, is that majority of the people who are under 60 years old who get the COVID right now, it's better than they had, and Ryan will know this. It wasn't even as bad as the flu that they got last year.
Right. Okay, so let me say a couple of things. CDC came out 2 weeks ago with the new mortality rates, and what they said was under 50 was 0.05% mortality, and 50 to 65 was 0.2% mortality. So as people get their arms around this, think about this just in a common sense. You remember when Wisconsin had their elections and people had to get in line with, you never heard of anything about what happened to the surge on that one. You know what I'm saying? People are going to wisen up, and you know, what I see in Texas is a lot of hope. And what a good business colleague of mine said, there's winners and there's losers. And remember, you know, they're talking about 30% of restaurants may not come back. 85% of those are independent. They may not come back. So what happens when you lose your competition? Well, you probably gain some more customers. So it's just a matter of, if you run your business right and you don't try to, you build equity is helpful for sure, because you never know when the rainy day might happen, or when the next coronavirus part 2 comes, you know what I'm saying? Or whatever it might be. I'm just saying, but there, you know, just look at it as more opportunities. There's winners and losers, and there's hope.
Well said.
Say, Eric, you said that you have an appetite for buying more franchises, not present company, not in so many words, but I wondered, Michael, what's your team look like on franchise development? Are you pausing that? Is it full steam ahead? Are there still folks showing interest in the pipeline?
We've got 20 grand openings through June and July of new parks, right? So
good for you.
And those were sold last year, but we were able to continue construction, continue maintaining their liquidity, which super proud of my team. We sold five deals last month. So, people, as Eric's saying, there's great real estate deals out there right now. I mean, a landlord that's got a 30,000 square foot box is freaking out right now.
Right.
You know, we're a great tenant. We've never had a closure. We have great AUVs. We have great EBITDAs. So, I mean, we're getting smoking deals right now on rent. And we're well capitalized. So I say where there is turmoil, there is opportunity. We have some franchisees who are over leveraged that are looking to sell, and you can probably buy them at a multiple lower than what you would have bought them pre-COVID. But that, you know, I do think, you know, people may take a slightly different approach in how they run their business. A lot of businesses are over levered, right? You look at Chuck E. Cheese, Main Event just raised 80 million in capital. You know, I do think we all thought we were in control, maybe a little more than we really were. We woke up one day and we're like, wow, I mean, we all thought life was good. And then we got just kicked in the what, you know? And so I do think, as Eric was saying, I think, you know, building up some liquidity and being a good steward of what you've been given, and not over levering it for the next deal, people are going to think twice about that, you know?
So let me offer a different perspective well, not different, but a similar perspective for you. I firmly believe that the last recession we had created the new franchise revolution, where people lost their jobs, lost their careers, and didn't know what to do, and they went into franchising instead. I do think you're going to see that again with this. You're going to see a spike in franchising again, because like I've had someone approach me trying to buy the Beverly Hills Rejuvenation Centers, one of mine, in another city, not Dallas, and her brother is being let go by USAA, but he was way up in there. He's got a lot of money, and she's, you know, a doctor. And so that just tells me right there that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for franchisors. And I think there's going to be another franchising boom as well. And there's going to be some new concepts coming out that are just going to totally blow people away in the franchising business. So
I agree. That's what my guys are telling me. My guys live through, I have Josh Wall, my chief franchise officer. I know a lot of people on this call know him. He's a great guy. He was with Christian Brothers Automotive. So he came out of 2008, right? And sold a ton coming out of 2008. He's selling a ton now. And then I've got Jessica Correa, who was the chief marketing officer for Planet Fitness, took them public. You know, so she went through some of that. She was also with Royal Caribbean after 9/11. And so a lot of the playbook that we're implementing post-COVID is what Royal Caribbean did coming out of 9/11 to build their business into what it is today. So when others are kind of hunkering down and scared to spend money on marketing, we're coming out swinging because we think like Eric said, there's a tremendous amount of market share available. Analysts are telling us 40% of the mom and pop FECs are not going to come out of COVID or won't last 90 days once they open. So that's a lot of market share available for our franchisees. And we got to go out there and build our brand awareness.
Well, guys, we are up against the time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for the perspective. I wish we had another hour because I think we could get into a lot of stuff. But if each of you want to give a very quick kind of parting word of advice, try to keep it at 15 seconds as folks are hopping into other meetings. But Eric, we'll start with you.
Thanks. Well, instead of wondering what's going to happen, I think now's the time to start plotting and planning and looking at opportunities and coming out what you're going to do for your customers as well in your business, but also what are the opportunities that are out there. I mean, there is hope.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Michael, what say you?
Yeah, I think so many people right now are scared and they're running around trying to figure out what to do next. And they can be, so I'm telling each and every one on my team, I want to know what your next 5 moves are. That's it. Just focus on the next 5 moves in a linear progression. And let's play the chess game on the next 5 moves and just keep it simple. And, you know, we can't think too long-term right now because we don't know what tomorrow holds. Let's operate with the data and information that we have right now, plan our next 5 moves. And if you make it into baby steps like that, it's very achievable. Don't try to get too smart with this thing because it's a first, right? There's always a first.
Beautiful advice.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, you guys are amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you, At Home community, and we'll let you get back to your business, but we appreciate your folks' time and thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Bye bye.
Right. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
See ya.